Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm good. How are you?
Very good. Am I audible?
Yeah, loud and clear.
All right, great. So, welcome to our today's session, Sumati. It is a pleasure to have you with us today. And for our viewers, our today's session is to do with the choosing the right facade and fenestration products. And we have architect Sumati here from Studio Arc.S. She is a B.Arch from Vastukala Academy, as well as she has done her project management as well. Now, that's a very unique combination we normally don't come across an architect who also has an experience or let's say qualified as a project management. Why? Because we have a lot of architects, but when it comes to project managers, obviously a country as large as ours is definitely in a lot of shortage in terms of project management skills. So it is interesting. I was going through a profile and it was interesting to note that probably she looks at design from not only an aesthetic perspective, but also looking at the economy and the project management side of it. So I'm sure today's session would be very, very knowledgeable for the people who are going to join in. And at the same time, looking forward to have a good session with you, Sumati. So anything about
Thank
yourself
you
that
so
you'd
much.
like to
I
share?
know you introduced me very nicely. Thank you so much for that. And it would be my pleasure for, to be on a live session like this. So live sessions are always fascinating me because it opens our window, our fenestration system to a wider audience. So it is always nice to be here.
Okay, great. So let's start with our today's session. So my obviously first question is the approach that your firm has towards selecting the right fenestration product. So how would you like to introduce this aspect of the fenestration industry?
See, if I talk about approach towards choosing the right fenestration product, it would be like while designing any sort of a building, we first talk about at Studio Arcs, we talk about the quality of indoor spaces, the kind of planning that we do for our indoor spaces. But definitely, facade plays a very important role because facade is like a body to the inner soul and it connects your outer world to the inner world of the building. And while we are selecting the materials for our facade or the right fenestration system, it is not the factors that defines the fenestration system. It is the time which is there. Like we talk about the older era, there were jharokas which we always see in our monuments, in our forts, which have been replaced by the modern bay windows in the modern era, or the traditional jalis which were there in the older era, and now we can see the modern metal facades all around us in the era of modernization. So overall factors that would define or that we would rather see while choosing the facade would be the climatic condition of the area where the facade, where the building would be located or the project would be located. Then the orientation of the building is very important because if it is a corner plot, then we would rather giving a normal fenestration, we would love to open it through a corner to give a better vision from inside. If it is a three-sided plot, then it would be a very different thing. So the orientation of the overall building is very important. Then talking about the nature of the building, is it a residential project or a commercial project, or is it a educational institution, or the shape, size, and form of the kind of fenestrations that we are going to use in the building. For example, if we talk about IIM Ahmedabad, the fenestration is altogether very different as compared to the fenestrations which are there in Hawa Mahal. So both the windows are having the kind of proportions, the kind of openings required in the building, but the overall scenario, the overall size of the building, the overall size of the fenestration, or the shape of the fenestration, or the dimensions of the fenestrations are different, which defines the building from outside. So,
Okay. Okay. I have a small request. If you can be a little closer to the mic because we kind of miss you in between when you are talking. Okay, I'll
okay,
just kind of, I would kind of brief the main pointers that I've written down from your answer. Probably you started with saying that the quality of indoor spaces is important. And you also gave an example of how earlier the Jarokas and other screening jalis were used. And boiling down finally to two main aspects. One is the climate and the orientation of the building. So now these are the I would say the key factors that you kind of evaluate in terms of your approach towards facade and fenestration. Okay. So once we've done now with the approach, how would you want to speak about the factors that one should consider while selecting a fenestration system?
Sorry, you were like,
I said that what
your
are the
voice was breaking in
factors?
between.
Can you hear me clearly now?
Yeah, now.
So yeah, so what I wanted to ask was that what are the factors you think that a common layman should be looking at in terms of choosing the fenestration systems from an architect's perspective, from a project manager's perspective?
See, if I'm talking about the facade as the body to the inner soul, the fenestrations act like the eyes and the nose of that body. Eyes means lighting and nose means ventilation. So, for a layman to choose the right kind of a system for facade would be the lighting and the ventilation. Then the connectivity of indoor to the outdoor is very, very important. Then as far as a layman is concerned, security aspect is very important role played from the perspective of a layman, from the perspective of a client who's using the building. Then sustainability would be an aspect from my perspective, because see, the material which is used should be recyclable, it should be robust enough so that it can take the environmental conditions of the area. And then longevity of the material is also very important. See, if we talk about the high performance of any sort of fenestration, we are talking about the lifetime, the lifespan of the fenestration. It is very important. Then energy efficiency is also important. I cannot, give sort of like in hilly terrain or in extreme climate conditions. I cannot give a fenestration or the size of the fenestration as big as I can provide it in a plain terrain, because that cannot take the extreme climatic conditions which are there. So I guess these are some of the factors which are there, and one most important factor which is there in today's scenario would be the technological advancement, which is growing day by day. So, in my point of view, the system should be in compliance with the building automation system so that we can take it forward.
Okay, so I am going to once again, brief for our viewers the key points that you mentioned. Obviously, you gave a very good example of eyes being the lighting and the nose being the ventilation of a facade. And after that, you kind of focused upon four aspects. One was to do with the security, which I do agree with you that most of the customers we also come across are very, very concerned about security, to the extent that some are even paranoid about security. Why? Because these days fenestration systems, not all of them have grills installed, and we are coming from a background wherein we've always had grills. So that one aspect having been taken away makes them more concerned about the security aspect. And the second thing, which is obviously one of my favorites, is the sustainability aspect. And that is the reason that probably we are into the trade. Why? Because we should always be into something which is sustainable for the future generation, and not only something that earns us money or gives us, occupies our interest for the time being. And then, and then the third factor that you focused upon was the energy efficiency. Of course, these days, the systems that are coming in, either it is any material, frankly, when you use high performance glazing as well as the gasket based engineered system, it takes care of the energy aspect. But yes, with the help of an architect, you can use it more, I would say, in the right way for, I would say, building. And the fourth thing that you kind of touched upon was the systems being being compatible with automation. Very rightly so, because these days even the curtains are operated with the help of remote control. So why not many other things in the house which probably can be done more effortlessly, specifically for the new
Yes.
generation, right? So I'm with you on that.
One more thing I would like to add in this. The hardware system would also be a concern thing when we talk about the fenestrations, because the inner hardwares See, we can see the sleek and the slim systems from outside, but what is inside is more important. So the hardware plays a very important role as well.
You are definitely right. In fact, being in the trade for about 15 years, we do have a lot of companies who can make very good extrusions. We have very good companies where we can get coloring done. But having said that, India definitely lacks a good infrastructure or companies which can make good hardware. Even if you would see that when we talk about wooden joineries, or for that matter, I would say the wooden industry or the carpentry industry. Other than a couple of brands, the major share is with the foreign brands like Headache, Hafele, Blum, etc. So, which clearly shows that there was a big gap in the accessories and fittings industry in India, and same is the case for frankly windows as well. So we hope that in future more and more good companies come up wherein we can kind of take their services in using their hardware. But yes, these days good hardware. I mean, for a good product these days, a good hardware is definitely European hardware that probably we are also using in our products. So okay, let's move on to the next question, which is to do with the context now. Now, what role does the context play in choosing these systems? So this is something which probably for the viewers would be difficult to understand because contextually it may differ from a person to a person. So let's
Right.
understand let's understand from your perspective.
So, context is the most imperative aspect while deciding the building facade, while deciding the building fenestration system. So, my project can act as a beauty, a scenic beauty to the scenic beauty of the place. So, it can add to the beauty, but it can be an eyesore. If I cannot do
Yeah.
a high-rise building in a hilly terrain, I cannot do uh, a very, again I quoted it earlier as well, a very modern facade in the southern terrain where extreme climates are there. If we see I'll quote an example of Delhi only. Being a Delhiite, it is very necessary to quote an example from Delhi. So old Delhi, very near to my heart. I cannot a modern facade or a modern structure, in Chandni Chowk. Although the things have been changed, but contextually, the new things which are coming up in the old Delhi, are also as per the context of the area, to retain the beauty of the area, to retain the culture of that area. We cannot give a very very modern facade in old Delhi. So the Jarokas are retained, the architraves are retained, the architectural elements, the architectural aesthetics are retained. So context is very important. It is imperative to change the context, to take context out of the design approach and build anything.
So, okay, now that's a very interesting way that you answered the question, giving an example of Chandni Chowk. I am definitely with you that you definitely cannot have a very modernistic or let's say a parametric facade in Chandni Chowk. Why? Because it will definitely not kind of, fit in the context of other buildings around. And I think that's one aspect that an architect has to kind of take care of in spite of the customer not realizing how he may disturb the overall, look and feel of the place. So here I also, have my personal inquisitiveness says that how do we fit in, let's say, I mean, when we're talking about we have to be in a context, how do we fit in parametric facades in probably wherever we stay, even if we are talking about Delhi, it may be modern Delhi or let's say South Delhi and maybe Chandigarh where I live. So, I mean, most of the buildings here are very modern and open because designed by Le Corbusier, etc. But how do you fit in, just as a general discussion, parametric facades in such kinds of contexts? So, whether are you trying to advise that we should have a separate colony for only parametric facades because
No,
parametric
no,
facades definitely
never.
stand
See
alone
again,
everywhere.
it is again a very individual based question. So we can fit in parametric facade anywhere, depends upon the kind of parameters that we are taking into consideration. So parametric facade, if I talk about, so we have recently designed you know monument sort of a thing, an iconic structure which was a competition based thing. So for that we have designed a parametric thing which is caged in between the contextual parameters were taken into consideration. So we have taken the parametric thing and we have caged it into a contextual structure. So the whole thing becomes parametric, but then it is as per the context of the area which was provided in the competition. So it is the way that we design the thing. It is not that parametric architecture is only constrained to a modern area. It is definitely not like that. The scenario is that how we design that parametric thing is important as per the contextual need of the area. So that is the thing. So as an
Okay, very
architect, we can decide it in any which number. So it is a very elaborative topic that we can take in another session.
yeah. No, no. I just wanted to understand the minute I understood a specific context of Chandni Chowk, I always find parametric facade standing out from wheresoever you drive by or pass by, probably as if, the architect or the customer is trying to, showcase something distinct about their own personality. And, suddenly it's the odd man out who is probably dressed in a different way, or let's say dressed in a shorts in I would say, a formal function. So that's why I wanted to understand that,
So
how
it is a
whether
very
these build.
interesting, yeah. So it is a very interesting thing. I guess we would also think about it like how we can design a parametric structure in Chandni Chowk, and we would definitely work on this and come up with some
Okay.
design solution like that.
All right. So, okay, let's move on to the next question. So, this is about the process of determining the fenestration systems. So, basically, most of our questions are actually to understand the architect's perspective and on various same aspects, probably, or similar aspects of fenestration. And the language that we are seeking is something which is easily understood by a layman. Why? Because you can understand when someone is coming to build a house, he has tens and hundreds of things to think about, and sometimes in too much of detail they just miss out on the bigger aspects. So
Right.
what do you think should be the right way of telling them that what's the process, probably from an architect's perspective, and what is it that they should be looking at?
Mm, I guess we are living in a world where the client is very smart, where a layman is also aware of everything and anything which is there in the surrounding. Everybody wants a green building. Everybody wants a sustainable building. So it's not
Correct.
like that a layman is not aware of anything. It is just that being an architect, we need to bridge the gap between the layman and their project. So the layman could be a client, the layman could be anybody who is building a house or any educational institution or a hospitality project, but everybody comes with great constraints. So as it can be a topographical constraint. I am living in a hilly area, but I need a high rise building. So that gap is to be bridged by the architect. It is our moral duty that how we can bridge this gap between the layman and the topography of that area. Then there is a budget constraint that the client can have, or there is so knowledge constraint. I would not say that the client is having a knowledge constraint most of the times, or the layman is having a knowledge constraint most of the times, because we are living in an educated environment. Everybody is aware, internet is there, everybody is aware of everything. But being an architect, it's our social and moral responsibility to bridge the gap between the constraints and the final product which has to come.
Yeah, so probably, when my experience has been that most of the customers are totally clueless. I mean, that is what happens, that the branding exercise really makes an impact on anyone who's trying to find a product which is new for the industry. So if we have to kind of break that mindset, so what you are trying to say is basically to understand I mean, what I understand from your submission is that the customers do not have a constraint of knowledge, but they just need to be guided properly. I would say that way,
Yeah.
and architects and the companies that they deal with should be the right ones. Sorry, you were
If
saying
we
something?
if we talk in a more layman language, fenestration is one thing which is forming the building envelope.
Correct.
We are having a box which is our building, and there are a few cutouts in the building. The size and all would be defined by the designer, but yes, the cutouts in the building are called the fenestrations. So to be more precise, these cutouts provide you light, ventilation, a shape to the building. It is the image of the building which is being formed because of these cutouts. So, we talk about, Sept Ahmedabad, which is designed by B.V. Doshi.
Yeah.
timeless architecture example of an architectural college. Or we talk about the High Court designed by Le Corbusier, which is Secretariat in Chandigarh. So it is again very different example of architecture which is timeless. So talking broadly about fenestration, fenestration is just a cutout in the building which defines the shape of the building, which defines the nature of the building, which defines the building. So basically it is the name to the building.
Yeah.
Like
Okay. So
name, like Studio Arcs is my company's name which is defining me. So fenestration is defining the building.
okay. So, I mean, taking this cue forward, let's take an example before a customer really approaches a professional to understand the actual, I would say, fenestration requirement that he or she may want to consider. What do you think are the right sources, or, what are the platforms from where they can be more aware about the whole aspect of administration before they actually approach a professional, so that there's some people who want to do their homework before they kind of go and discuss. Why? Because they're not from the trade. So what are your recommendations for them?
See, most of the time we would not suggest the customer to do a lot of homework, because we are there to suggest them, we are there to guide them what is right for their building, what is right for them to choose. But yes, if they want to do the homework, social media is there to guide each and every customer. Now everybody is on social media, so social media is one platform. Then Google is there. Don't search that what brands you should go in for. Search for the kind of things you need. Like search for the things that is required for your building. If you are doing a residential building, search what is all required to make the building energy efficient, which can save upon the energy of the building, which can save upon your electricity bills which are there, which can provide you natural ventilation or natural lighting in the inside of the area. Because see, fenestration is the thing which balances the right amount of sunlight, direct sunlight, and the natural light. Fenestration is one thing which balances between the air conditioning requires inside with the natural ventilation which is coming from outside. So think over these lines rather than thinking about the kind of brands which are there. So the professionals are always there to guide you for that. But doing your homework is necessary in terms of uh, what you really need in your building, what is the kind of building that you are doing, and what is the kind of what is the end use of that building, and what is the kind of need in the building, what is the correct amount of light which should be there, what are the climatical aspects of the area. So these things should be there with the client.
Okay, so great. So what Sumit is trying to say is that just like when you are sick or probably you are apprehensive that you will fall sick, don't go into Google and search for the medicines. Why? Because the doctor is the right
Yeah,
person.
go to the
So
doctor.
don't
Yeah.
so don't try and be a Google doctor. So very well said. Thank you very much for your participation today, Sumit. It was great to have you with us. Any last
Thank
words on
you
the
so
topic
much.
today?
uh, Choosing the right fenestration is not required, choosing the right designer is required. So that would be my word. Thank you so much, and it was a pleasure to be with you for this session today. Looking forward to more such sessions very soon.
Sure. We kind of welcome you whensoever you want to come into Chandigarh. We can also
For sure.
plan a visit for you to the Secretariat, although some permissions are required, but if we are given, advance notice, we'll prepare for that. All right.
Great.
Thank you.
I'll be
Thank
in touch
you.
with you for that. Thank you.
Sure. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye bye.